Well, just quickly, I'll before we start the questions and my responses, I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is Dr. Jeff Beard. I'm the Deputy State Director for Career and Technical Education for the state of New Hampshire. I work at the Department of Education in the Bureau of Career Development. The Bureau of Career Development largely works with career and technical education, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But we also do a lot of just general career developing and some work to help parents and young people make informed decisions about what they might want to do for work while they're in high school, after high school. And the whole goal is to have family sustaining, fulfilling, rewarding careers that young people can have a lot of options, a lot of choice, and a lot of just good information so that they and their families can make informed decisions.
Did you want me to just start with the questions, Jeffrey?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Heidi.
So what is CTE?
CTE is an acronym that stands for Career and Technical Education. Career Technical Education, or CTE, is a variety of educational opportunities that we have in New Hampshire at regional career and technical education centers. These CTE centers are located in high schools. We have 29 across the state. The range of programs is everything from accounting to welding. So there are a large number of subject areas leading to careers that young people can take while they're in high school. The most important thing about career and technical education is that it's applied learning. So a really important part of that applied learning is work-based learning. So work-based learning can either take place in a school, in a lab, or a shop. The One example are cosmetology programs, or cutting hair, doing nails, doing makeup, getting people ready to be licensed cosmetologists. The salons in our high schools, in our CTE centers, are real live licensed salons where people can go and have a number of beauty treatments. They can have their hair cut, they can have their hair styled, they can have their nails done. And similarly, students that work in the auto tech programs, they run auto shops. So people can come and have oil changes done. Many of our auto shops are licensed inspection stations for the state of New Hampshire, so you can get your car registered. You can get you can have your inspection done, get your inspection sticker. You can get your tires changed. But the main important thing about CTE is that it's gives people the knowledge and skills that they need to have careers or to go on to more education and training after high school.
So how do students access these programs?
Students access these programs by registering for CTE courses. Most of the 29 centers have a formal application process, and the contact for that is through either a school counselor, or in the cases of students that don't attend public high schools, kids that go to that are homeschooled, kids that are in non-public schools, they would work with whoever the person is that makes those connections at their school, or their parent can directly connect with the CTE center to request an application. The application period is usually runs from roughly December to February, and you'd want to connect with your local CTE center. We do have a map on the Bureau of Career Development website that shows the locations of the 29 centers, and it'll give you an idea of what would be closest to you. In the case of kids that go to charter schools are public schools in New Hampshire. The school counselor, or again, the person that makes those kinds of connections, could help the young person to get an application. But generally, the way that CTE Access works is that the centers are regional. So you don't have to be a student attending the high school that houses the center. You just have to get to the center. And an important thing about the transportation cost is that the state of New Hampshire reimburses at a rate of 10 cents per mile per student for bus transportation. And if there's no bus transportation available, we'll also pay for 25 cents per mile for self-transport, which includes parents driving. So there is reimbursement available. The district that's responsible for the costs of transportation are the district in which the young person resides. So in the case of a regional high school, or in the case of a non-public school or a charter school, the town where the young person lives is the town that would be responsible for covering the cost of transportation, and then the state of New Hampshire would reimburse that town.
So what's the eligibility process like?
The eligibility process includes, it really varies by center to center. But the important thing to emphasize is that CTE is accessible to all students in the state of New Hampshire. So every student who's completed 1 year of high school can attend CTE. Generally speaking, that means 10th grade and up. But the way the application process usually goes is it will include sometimes a short essay about the reason why the young person is interested. Something that's really important about career and technical education is that it really is focused. And so the best outcome for a kid who's interested in CTE is having them in a program that they have an interest in. So if they are placed in something like a culinary arts program because someone thinks, oh, this is a good fallback, they could work in a restaurant. It's not a great outcome for that kid. The kid's not going to be engaged. They're not going to have high interest. It really should be driven by their interests. And one of the things that you'll see in the links that are provided along with this video is a link to something called AWATO, which is a career interest inventory. So in the state of New Hampshire, every high schooler must, by the end of 9th grade, have taken some kind of career interest inventory. So they should have some idea of what they might be interested in doing for work after high school, or what they might want to study more of. The other factors that schools will look at, they will look at behavior. One really important thing about CTE programs is that they're in places where situational awareness and there could be an element of safety. If you're working in an auto shop, you will have an auto lift that has a several thousand-pound car up on that lift. So any kind of behavior referrals would be looked at, and it's something that the CTE center would want to really look at and know about. If it's behaviors that could potentially lead to that young person putting themselves or their classmates in danger, that's something that really that they really want to look at. The other piece is that CTE does require some time outside of in some cases, you're sending the school that you typically attend. So getting on a bus and going across towns is part of CTE because of our regional nature. It's easier for kids that are in high schools that have the CTE center. But again, something that might be looked at is attendance record could be something that's looked at because there is that additional transportation logistical piece. None of these things are necessarily one part. It's really a holistic process where the CTE center is looking at the whole student, and they're really looking at all of these factors to consider which kids are going to be the best fit for their programs. The bottom line is that the CTE programs are fairly limited in terms of numbers. There is a state level limit of 24 students per classroom, and that's in the minimum standards for public school approval. That's really based on lab and shop, and that's a safety consideration. However, CTE centers can impose lower class size limits for safety reasons, but for other reasons as well. The one thing that comes up often with culinary arts programs, for example, is that the local health inspector may have a set of regulations that says that only a certain number of students can work in the station in the kitchen. So there were things where there's some state regulations, there's some local regulations, all of which goes to make CTE fairly competitive. So it's important as parents to know that you want to get out ahead and build relationships with the CTE center early on. And if your child has an interest and expresses an interest in something, letting that center know ahead of time. Again, they're doing registrations from December to about February for the following school year. So that's going to be a critical time to get in touch with school counselors at your child's school, or to directly contact the CTE center director to let them know that you would love to have an application, and to really signal your child's interest and enthusiasm, which is always something that helps.
Jeffrey, what do they do if they aren't able to get into that program, or are there other options for them?
There are a number of options. One thing that's great about New Hampshire is all about options. So if for whatever reason the young person doesn't get into the CTE program, there's really three different possibilities. It depends on the career area in the area that they want to study. The first option is an extended learning opportunity, or ELO, where the most high schools have an ELO coordinator, or extended learning opportunity coordinator. That ELO coordinator could work out something that would be an internship, where the young person goes out to actually work with a person in the field, in the industry, and learn by doing. So really applied learning. That's one possibility. The other possibility is you have to defer things a little bit, but as most young people are going into CTE in 10th grade, it unfortunately does mean you have to wait a little bit. But the community college system in New Hampshire has fantastic CTE programs post-secondary. So for example, if you're interested in auto technology, Lakes Region Community College, Manchester Community College, and White Mountain Community College up in Berlin all have auto tech programs. In fact, White Mountains has the only diesel mechanic program in the state. So the community college system is a good option. Related to that is the Career Academy. New Hampshire Career Academy is open to all New Hampshire high school aged students. Career Academy is a kind of an interesting program where for the senior year of high school, a young person goes to and takes all of their courses at a community college system of New Hampshire campus. And then they stay on for a year following. So they essentially do a 13th year. When they're done, they have an associate's degree and they have their high school diploma. And this is at no cost to families, no cost to the student. This is a cost that the state of New Hampshire completely covers. The only limitation in terms of career technical education and Career Academy is that not every CTE program is included in the Career Academy program. However, one thing that's interesting about Career Academy is that the students that go into Career Academy are connected with a mentor, so that there'll be a connection to an employer. We just had our first graduating class go through this past year. One young man went through and is now working at Filtrene Corporation. It was hired. So he had a paid internship while he was in the Career Academy. He was interested in studying engineering. And now he has a full-time job with Filtrene, who will then also, in all likelihood, pay for his Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. So Career Academy is another option. And then the third option would be to so we have extended learning opportunities. You have Career Academy, and then the community college system. Another possibility is there are Learn Everywhere programs in New Hampshire. To date, I don't believe we have any Learn Everywhere programs that are directly work-based learning or career technical education, but that is an option. That is a possibility. If there's a registered Learn Everywhere site, Learn Everywhere sites are non-school settings that register with the state of New Hampshire and get approved by the State Board of Education. if a student wanted to go do a Learn Everywhere site, they can do that for credit, for graduation credit. Um, but I think that the other options I outlined are probably the most direct. So just to go over it one more time, extended learning opportunities or ELOs, the community college system of New Hampshire doing coursework, the the Career Academy program. Those are probably the best bets if CTE doesn't work out while the young person is still in high school.
What does CTE look like for children with disabilities or students with disabilities?
CTE for children with disabilities really looks much like any kind of education for children with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations, modifications. The teachers are very invested in making sure that every accommodation is in place to make sure that people can be successful. The really important thing to remember is that CTE is preparing for careers, preparing for the world of work. So the same kind of accommodations that a person with disabilities will need as an adult when they're in the workforce are the same that they'll need when they're in CTE classes. Educational supports, things that are included in a 504 plan or in an IEP, those travel to CTE programs with the young person. So that everything that's in an IEP, everything that's in a 504 plan would apply. But those accommodations are really important. And in fact, it's so important to us at the state that we make sure that there's about $6 million in federal funding that comes through the state of New Hampshire every year, the Perkins Grant, for career and technical education. We put out about $4 million of that to local high schools for their CTE programs. And something we really encourage and want to see in their annual applications for funding is that if they need physical accommodation materials, if they need adaptive equipment, anything that might help to make young people more successful, we strongly encourage and we want to make sure we see that in those applications. One really good example would be going back to culinary arts, having those stainless workstation tables where you're cutting, preparing, getting ready to cook, having those at variable height so that if someone was a wheelchair user, they could easily access. That kind of accommodation is really important. But in general, CTE for young people with disabilities is just like any other educational setting. You want to make sure that those accommodations are in place. One thing I would mention is that because CTE is competency based, we don't have programs modify competencies. Accommodations to attain those competencies is the way to go, because again, those competencies signal that somebody has a set of things that they know and are able to do, saying that they're ready for entry level work in the field that they prepared for, or more education and training. So we wouldn't modify those competencies, but we would put really strong accommodations in to ensure that a young person with disabilities could show proficiency in those competencies.
Now, Jeffrey, can they earn college credit through doing the career and technical education?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, Heidi. The community college system has a dual enrollment program called Running Start that's been in place for a long time now. Many, if not most, of our high school CTE programs have Running Start credit to go along with them. And if they don't have Running Start, they also would have an articulation agreement. What an articulation agreement is an agreement to grant credits when someone completes the CTE program and then enroll in the college. Dual enrollment or Running Start is they actually take the same college course with the same content at their high school and then actually earn the credit. They would actually have the credit. So young people can earn a significant number of college credits. In some cases, they can get about halfway to an associate's degree through a CTE program while still in high school, which is a tremendous cost savings for families and for kids afterwards.
And my final question is, how early should the family start thinking about that? Is middle school too early?
Middle school is a perfect time, and I'm really happy you asked that question. The thing I want to really emphasize when we talk about career pathway and career development planning, there shouldn't be any foregone conclusions. I would never expect someone who's 13, 14 years old to know exactly what they're going to be doing for the rest of their life. But kids do have strong interests. Kids love to talk about things that they find interesting. And so having those conversations and saying, hey, what do you think you might want to do? What are you interested in? Um, Doing a little bit of exploration. I would say taking the away to assessment is a great place to start, but also just telling kids about your work, sharing with them what you do for a career, and having that conversation. What do you think about what I do? Would you be interested in something similar? And even simple sort of questions like, do you like to spend time outdoors, or would you rather spend time inside? That can help to narrow down all the possibilities, but doesn't limit the possibilities. So middle school is a great time to start thinking about both career and technical education and career planning. And many of our regional high school CTE centers run summer programs for middle school kids. So the sort of classic way that they set it up is that they'll have a survey experience where there's a camp, typically a 2-week camp, where kids go and they sign up for a number of learning experiences that are in the CTE programs at the center. So they might say, I think I want to try out cosmetology, auto technology, and the culinary arts. And so they might spend a little time in the culinary arts kitchen, making some dishes, tasting food, which everyone likes to do. And then they'll spend a little bit of time in the cosmetology lab, working on some of the styling mannequins, learning how to style hair a little bit. And then they might round out things in the auto tech program, learning how to check the oil and change the oil on a car. So middle school is a great time to just sort of generally dive into career exploration, and particularly taking advantage of these, again, at no cost to families, these summer learning experiences at the CTE centers. Really good opportunity to try out CTE a little bit and see if it might be something that then once ninth grade is completed, going into it for 10th grade.
Is there anything that you might want to add that I didn't think of to ask you for a question before we close out?
Well, I don't really have anything to add except to say that the main goal of the New Hampshire Department of Education is to provide bright futures for New Hampshire learners. And young people in New Hampshire have so much possibility out in front of them. It's really important to us to have kids have great educational experiences, stay in the state, because we want to make sure that we have folks that are building our economy, growing our economy, and we really want to emphasize the importance of elevating the range of possibilities for kids with disabilities. There's so much that's out there, and being happy, healthy, having bright futures is something that's attainable for every kid. So the message I would leave everyone with is that career and technical education is for everyone. It's a great opportunity. It gives real world experience. It gives some advantage. Kids that are able to access CTE have some advantage and a little bit more experience than kids that don't have the opportunities. So I would say look into CTE, consider it, and again, as Heidi had asked, start early, start in middle school.
Thank you, Jeffrey.